Welcome back to Westmoreland on the Gridiron. Sean Meyers now joined by the head coach of the Belle Vernon area Leopards, Matt Humbert. His team coming off of another impressive victory, 48-0, defeating Southmoreland. And so, Matt, you already know you're postseason bound. We have a big matchup to talk about this upcoming week, but it seems like once the conference play has begun, your team has taken it to a higher level. What have you seen in terms of the last handful of games that has allowed your team to have this great success?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily the conference play that really kind of is the catalyst for our playing in all facets of the game. I really think, the win over TJ, putting 21 up on them, and coming out of that after that heartbreaking loss to Penn Trafford really was kind of the crux of the season in terms of the kids really just reevaluating things and staying the pace and practicing a little harder and doing a little more. And that, I think that TJ victory was the catalyst for the success that's brought us through the past 4 weeks. And with that being said, we expected to win every one of those games. And we were able to achieve that. So the objective has been achieved. But I think the thing that's appealing or gratifying is to see the growth week after week after week, especially offensively, because defensively we've been solid since square one. I mean, against McKeesport, we only gave up 7 points defensively. Penn Trafford, we only gave up 14, and then we only gave up 7 against TJ. So, our nucleus of our team is pretty much kitted around our defense. With 5 new starters on offense, it was kind of a filling out process. And even, from when you did our game earlier on, I mean, our line has been a puzzle piece in terms of trying to find the right recipe of who plays guard, who plays tackle, who plays left, who plays right. And I think we've kind of got to that point. So it's just been kind of a puzzle piece that we've had to put together. And sometimes, unfortunately, as much as we want everything right now, it kind of takes a little bit, and it's a process. And, every coach in America preaches the process, but I think these guys truly embrace the idea that it's just one step at a time, one day at a time, 1 week at a time.
So you talked about some of the opposition you played before you got into the conference, and it was a very rigorous non-conference schedule, certainly by design. You wanted to play some really good teams. And I've sort of looked at that and talked to coaches who have different approaches, because some say you have these very competitive games and it gets you ready for the playoffs, but it could also be a battle of attrition where once you get into the conference play, you're not at 100% because you're playing all these physical matchups. How did you kind of weigh the getting ready for postseason play and challenging yourself versus not wanting to, I guess, use all your bullets before you get into the conference?
I think past experience. I mean, if you look at, really 2 of our season-ending injuries last year, they came against teams that weren't the biggest physical matchups of our season last year. I mean, the big matchups last year, the TJ, the Penn Trafford, the McKeesport, we escaped those games without injury. I mean, we suffered 2 ACL tears and 2 different opponents that, nothing against those opponents, but they weren't the juggernauts that we faced in some of the big conference games that we had last year. So, it's one of those things where no matter what, getting hurt in football is always on the table, no matter who you play, no matter when it is. And it's something that you just can't worry about, in my opinion. It's something that the more you dwell and focus on it, the higher of a risk you probably put yourself into that position. So, we knew that, we had a lot returning. We knew our roster would be very small, which it is, but we still knew we had a quality nucleus, and we wanted to have those games early on that were going to test us and make us uncomfortable, because even though we returned a lot, we still had a lot of inexperience at certain positions. So we needed that uncomfortability up front. And with that being said, it's hard to gauge it until, the season's over, and hopefully we'll sit back and say, yeah, it was the right decision.
You had a lot of success last year, obviously, making it to the championship. You came up short there, but I think the expectations were this could be another championship team because you dropped down to 3A. And as you mentioned, you returned some really, really good players as well. How have the players kind of handled the expectations that it's, at least from the outside, a championship or bust campaign at Belle Vernon?
Well, I think it's by constantly preaching to the kids and having the narrative every day beat into their ear. And I think early on, some of those contests maybe humbled us a little bit, because I think some people, and I don't want to necessarily say that it's necessarily our kids, maybe some people on the outside, just expected us to pick up exactly where we left off last year. And every year is different. The makeup of your team's different. The mentality of your team's different. Just one of those things where you have to keep the kids grounded, but then you have to keep the kids understanding that they are the team to beat as well. I mean, we're not running from that by any means, but at the end of the day, anything can happen, and there's some good quality opponents no matter who you face on a Friday night. Obviously that's the case with our upcoming ones. So, the thing that I like about us is we're just so business-like, and I know that gets thrown around in the coaching cliches a lot, but I just truly feel that the way that my coaches send the message daily to the kids and what we preach gets them to buy into, to just focus on that task at hand and get ready for that opponent and not really worry about what comes next or what's going to happen in the future. We're trying to live in the moment and do everything we can to prepare ourselves for that Friday night game, because we know if we do that, chances are, good things might come our way. And you can't control what happens in 2-3 weeks from now. You can only control what happens on Friday night. So I love the mindset of where our team is right now. I love the focus of the kids. And I just think we need to keep that, replicate that, and manifest it moving forward.
Quentin Martin's had a great season, as expected. He's a terrific junior, but it seems like it's not just he, but kind of a group effort to replace Steven Whitlock, because he was such a valuable player, not only as a quarterback and as a defensive back, but just always making the big plays and being a great leader last year. So now that we're almost through the entire regular season, how have you seen the group as a whole kind of fill that void?
Well, I just think it's a very team effort led group. And, I think it really starts with Quentin. I mean, Quentin's the biggest fist pumper, the biggest celebrator when it comes to other kids on the field having success. And, there's not one point in the season where that kid's mentioned one thing about touchdowns, reps, yards. I mean, it's not even something that even is in his wheelhouse or in any of our kids' wheelhouse. And I think that's because our coaches do a good job of sharing one vision and one message, and that's all about winning. And I'm fortunate enough that I have very grounded kids that, they're not grabbing the newspaper like some people might every Saturday morning, because they just enjoy playing football and they enjoy, fighting teams weekly. And I think that's one positive of us. I can't guarantee that that's going to gain or win us, future games down the road, but I sure as heck like where their mindset is. And I think it's a very professional business like work environment that these kids are a part of.
Coming off of a really nice win against Southmoreland. I talked to Tim Bukowski recently, and he, tipped his cap to the great job that you've done. He knows that firsthand, but they've had a pretty prolific offense. They have one of the best receivers in the entire WPIAL and a really good quarterback. How did your defense succeed at such a high level against them?
Well, I think, our backing core has done such a great job, especially in coverage this year. We've done well in the run game. There's no doubt about it. But I think, our outside backers and even our inside backers mixed with our secondary, can cover some space and, can cover people in man coverages, and then obviously are fast enough to make ground and zone coverages. So I think a lot of it kind of is a tip to those kids and what they do. And again, I think a lot of it is our defensive line's just been progressively getting better each week. And that was a puzzle piece, just like the offensive line was. So, the biggest thing that we've said from week one, I mean, and it's just beat into the kids' heads, is it's all about growth. It's all about getting better weekly. And I think that's the gratifying thing. I truly think that the kids have, we've been hard on the kids. We've tried to make this year as uncomfortable as possible, and they've really responded to that. So, I think we just got to keep the recipe that we have and keep utilizing it. And hopefully that'll keep propelling us moving forward.
Well, moving forward, it is a big showdown against Elizabeth Forward. This is an undefeated team. It's a battle for first place. When you look at EF, and I'm sure that that's a opponent that's pretty familiar with you, obviously the geographic proximity as well. What stands out about Elizabeth Forward?
I think what Mike's done over there, really speaks to their success. Mike's a close friend of mine, and prior to this year, we probably talked a lot about that. Once we found out we were conference foes, I think that kind of ceased to exist a little bit for obvious reasons. But, I think it really starts with him. I think he's done a great job over there. And I think that, his Kool-Aid that he gave out, the kids are buying it, and they're a very balanced team. If there's one thing that I can say about them, and I think it kind of is similar to us, they're very balanced. There's not really too many weaknesses or discrepancies. They're pretty even keeled across the board. They can run the ball well. They can throw the ball well. And defensively, they're aggressive. They're gonna try to put safeties in the box at every single opportunity. I just think that they've done a good job over there, and I think this is a year that they've kind of been waiting for, in the sense that they have a lot of different pieces for them to be successful, and obviously they have if you look at their record.
And so finally, this is a battle for first place that will determine the conference champions. Now, you're already postseason bound, so you don't have to worry about that. But how important is this game? And potentially, do you think that this could be the two best teams in 3A doing battle?
Yeah, I don't know. I like where we're at, and I like our team, obviously, and I think they're really good, and the record proves that. I don't know. I think I gave up trying to prophesize looking through the crystal ball a long time ago. I think our message and our mentality is we're not looking past this week. We all know where we want to go. We want to be back at Heinz Field. I'm not going to shy away from that. No kid on my team or coach on my team will shy away from that. That's the destination that we're all achieving to get to. But you know what? I think we're kind of putting everything on pause this week. I think we're putting everything on a pause, and we're getting ready for a fist fight. And that's what it's going to be, because I think both teams are physical, both teams are tough. And I truly think that's going to be the catalyst of who's ever successful. There's going to be a toughness factor on Friday night. So, we're over here, we're ready, we're grinding, and, we're just hoping that we can come out and execute.
Well, Matt, thanks so much for taking the time to do this. Once again, congratulations on officially getting back to the playoffs, and good luck against EF and in the postseason as well.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate everything you guys do.
That's Matt Humbert, the head coach of Belle Vernon. We'll take a break and continue West 1 on the Gridiron after this, right here on the Westmoreland Sports Network.